now cross live to Arise correspondent Adesua Giwa-Osage, who is monitoring proceedings in Riyadh at the ongoing 8th edition of the Kingdom's Future Investment Initiative, the flagship economic conference at the heart of Vision 2030, the multi-trillion-dollar plan to modernize and diversify Saudi Arabia's economy. Good to have you, Adesua. Thanks for joining us on Newsday.
Good to see you guys both. Good afternoon, Team Chopper. Good afternoon, Mobanale. I hope you're having a lovely day.
Yes, indeed. Now, the first session this morning focused on macroeconomics trend worldwide. What does the future hold for the world's middle class?
Well, it seems the future is bleak, but that's according to the conversations that we are hearing about the middle class. It says the world middle class has shrunk to below 50% in advanced economies, the first time since the 1970s. The world's middle class only controls 20% of the world's wealth. We have 50%, more than half of the world experiencing real wage stagnation or decrease. That means people's real wages have decreased due to inflation. So even though we have nominal values that are higher than they were before, people are earning way less now than they were in the past. You have 25% of parents who were tested by the Pew Research Center said that they believe that their children would be worse economically off than themselves. In fact, a question that was posed here today was that, is middle class just a myth? Like historically, does the middle class even exist? And obviously this goes beyond the trends we're seeing worldwide, but also in Nigeria. Now worldwide, 100 million people have gotten back into extreme poverty since COVID. In Nigeria in the past year, 14 million people, for nearly over a tenth of what happened across the world in recent years, occurred just in the last year in Nigeria. So that is a very, very scary number, a very scary fact. So when we're talking about the middle class and the future, when we're talking about macroeconomic trends, what they're speaking about here now is trying to lift people up from poverty, fighting worldwide inflation, and fighting these trends using innovative investments and innovative technologies.
Very disturbing trends indeed, Adesua. But we've spoken about the global North focus on energy transition in the past. How are the deals in Riyadh reflecting this?
Thank you so much for that question. You know, just recently I was at the Africa Oil Week and they were talking about Africa's resources being stranded because the global North is focusing on energy transition. They're focusing on clean energy. Just today, in the last 2 hours, we've seen announcements of IFC funding for solar farms in Uzbekistan. We've seen announcements of motor vehicle parts and manufacturing plants in Saudi Arabia for electric vehicles. We've seen announcements for even sub-electric stations here for Saudi Electric in Saudi Arabia. We have funds in Indonesia, in Hong Kong. So what is going on right now in the world is that the global North and in Asia, Middle East are investing in clean energy. They're investing in new technologies. And it's very difficult for Africa to be able to bridge that energy poverty gap when the investments are no longer coming into the continent. You know, we've been very lucky today to be able to speak to leaders from across the continent, including earlier today we spoke to the chairman of Shoreline Group, and he spoke about the need for the world to invest in gas. Nigeria has the largest proven reserves in the whole of the African continent, and we need to invest in this gas infrastructure. But you know, I'm not here alone in Riyadh. It's a full Arise house, and joining me now is the one and only Mr. Arafai Hosseini.
Great to have you on this one. I mean, very, very apt, you know, what you were talking about. And in fact, the future is indeed very bleak, you know, for most of the conversations. And that's why if you heard the second panel where Mr. Tony Olumelu was, he kept on bringing the African perspective, talking about the fact that, yes, you might see development all around the world, but the scale is different. I mean, the median age of the young person is relatively lower in Africa, and there are less opportunities. I mean, just looking around, you can see immense opportunities we have here for a lot of people and how the economy and the ecosystem is able to work for them. So as we're having all this tumultuous situation in the world, COVID-19, 2 wars, how are we going to help, you know, upskill the middle class? And it's a good conversation you have.
Yes.
Because at some point we had a middle class in Nigeria, and I'll tell you what the middle class was about 2010, 2011, 2012. That could probably buy a car worth 3 million naira, and that can spread the payment over, a year or two.
Yes.
That could probably, rent an apartment and do things. But today, most of that is creamed up because of inflation, and you don't have the capacity to hold forth again. So it's a germane conversation.
Definitely, and this is the importance when we talk about we need fiscal policy in Nigeria, and not just policy that's comprehensive, but policy that works,
yes.
Policy that's implemented, and policy that has the needed effect.
Yes.
Because most Nigerians, the reality is that now most Nigerians are living in poverty.
Yes.
And when the IMF comes out and says, continue the way you're going, but in the same breath says that inflation is expected to increase in 2025, then we have to ask ourselves that if we're even facing higher inflation in 2025, how is the average person going to survive?
Yes.
It's no longer a viable conversation where here we are in Saudi Arabia. They can talk about the middle class. They can talk about the middle class growth. They can do that in Hong Kong. They can do that comfortable in Singapore. But we cannot have that conversation because more Nigerians have entered extreme poverty in the last year than double the population of Singapore. So the conversations that we're having here, sometimes it's a bit different.
It's a bit different, and what you're saying is very apt. Take, for instance, Adesua, the cost of getting a meal, a quality meal in Nigeria, has ballooned to about 1,200. If you are to get a quality meal for 30 days in a week, that's over 30,000. That's more than half of the minimum wage already.
Yes.
What you have the minimum?
Yes.
You're the middle class. There's no in fact, I think the conversation is, for us in Africa, there's no middle ground for the middle class. That's just it.
Well, I think we're going to go back to you guys in studio now.
So a very interesting conversation going on in Riyadh. Yes, we can hear you very clearly. Very interesting conversation going on in Riyadh. It's also sad and heartbreaking, really. But then all the same, we just have to move on. Now, before we let you guys go, my final question. AI has been a major focus across the world. Is that also, a topic of discussion at the FII 8?
Oh, so we're talking about AI and the topic of discussion around AI. Now, the thing with AI is that it's been projected that 85 million jobs are going to be lost because of AI. But at the same time, AI is expected to help some countries leapfrog their development, some companies leapfrog their growth if they invest properly, if they're able to cultivate AI and use it productively, then it's also projected to help grow the world's GDP in the next couple of years. But the fact is that who's going to lose out in this AI transition? Who's going to lose out when the world is automated and we have energy poverty? We have people who don't even have access to electricity. Earlier on, the CEO of Goldman Sachs was on stage. He was on stage at the same time as Tony Elumelu, and he did speak to AI and the use of AI, particularly in the banking industry, particularly in investment, particularly in what it's going to do worldwide. But there's also the issue that most companies do not have AI ethics policy. And we need ethical implementation of artificial intelligence.
Very apt. See, something happened recently as regards AI. A radio station in Poland sacked all its workers and put in AI to be able to run the station. That shows that if care is not taken, a couple of years from now, our jobs are in jeopardy because AI might be doing all of this.
It might be one of the 85 million.
One of the 85 million. So, and I think that conversation of a radio station in Poland now sparks of the conversation about ethical use. Ethical use in news gathering. Ethical use in also understanding that people need to be able to keep jobs. And there's a creative angle to work itself. And it's not today we've had this conversation. If you remember historically, the Luddites movement, when machinery was brought to the workplace many years ago, this was how they kicked against. In fact, it was said that the Luddites then, those that didn't believe in big machinery, did jump in front of machinery for them to crush them and cause a storm in the workplace. But machinery still usurped them.
So AI is the new steam engine.
AI is the new steam engine.
It's the new wheel.
It's the new wheel, so it's definitely going to come at some point.
Yes,
and the question is, how are we ready for it?
Yeah.
How can we now collaborate with AI, because AI is supposed to be a great level of collaborative technology
Definitely.
to be able to help the future.
And I think
this
this is a great thing, because we have seen that Nigeria is trying to enter this space. We've seen our minister Bosun Tijani speak about AI very specifically, and a lot of people were questioning why invest in AI when we don't have electricity, but we cannot be left behind completely. And so it shows that we need to also hold policy with two hands and move forward.
And we need to do it, pari passu. We a lot of people make the argument, oh, you can't speak and you chew gum at the same time. But really, we need to catch up. And I keep telling people that Nigeria has actually played a very good catch-up job. Yes, if you see the way we leapfrog the internet technology, we're not there yet, but we did a very good catch-up job. So how can we innovate?
I mean, I think as of today, MoneyPoint is another unicorn coming out of Nigeria. So it seems we're doing a lot with a little.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we've done a lot, and there is still so much more to be done. Very thought-provoking conversation there. Thank you so much, Adesuwa Giwa Osage and Rufai Oseni. Thank you for repping us well right there at Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and enjoy the rest of your stay.